Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this next level webinar titled Top 5 Ways to Improve Your Service Desk. This webinar is presented by New Horizons' very own William Berger. My name is Brian Duncan. I'm going to be, technically the MC for the event, which all that means that if you have any questions or anything, put those in the chat box or the question box on the bottom right corner of the GoTo webinar, and I'll work with, I'll either answer them if I can based upon the slide deck or presentation, and anything else that Bill needs to be able to answer, he will be able to answer as we go through. So, first little line of business here, just a little bit about New Horizons, since this is provided by New Horizons. We're a proven worldwide training provider with flexible learning solutions, covering a broad spectrum of topics taught by industry-leading instructors. Next slide just has a few bullet points about us. Feel free to take a quick glance at that. And now I'd like to go ahead and introduce Bill so he can kind of go over the agenda and things like that.
Terrific. Thank you very much. As he said, I am Bill Berger. I'm also known as the Berger Man, and I will try to keep your attention for the next hour. The subject was and is top 5 ways to improve your service desk. So why would somebody or why should somebody attend this webinar? Because they believe that it is possible for their service desk to be better than it is. If you don't believe this, then you shouldn't be in here. If your service desk is functioning perfectly, maybe this webinar would not have caught your attention. But if you think that there's any way in which your service desk could be improved, you're the right client for this event. Who should attend this webinar? Anyone that believes they can impact their service desk towards becoming better than it currently is. So this could be people in the service desk, this could be people in the larger IT community, this could be people who consume the benefits of the service desk, this could be executive management, it could be anyone. Hopefully it's you. The agenda, we're going to introduce me real briefly. You didn't come here to learn about me, but I'd like to give you a little reason why you should listen to me. The top 5 ways that we keep promising you, and some question and answers. If the questions come into the chat during the presentation and it seems an appropriate place to interrupt the flow, that's perfectly all right. I'd love to be able to answer your questions as they are hot and topical. But if the questions can wait to the end, we have a slide for that, and we'll spend some time addressing anything you want to ask me. So who is the Berger Man? I am William Berger. I'm a technical instructor for New Horizons, Southern California since 1996. You could do the math. That's 2 decades, folks. Technical training manager. Currently, all the technical instructors for New Horizons, Southern California, work for me. And I've been in the industry, though, a lot longer than I've been with New Horizons. So 20 years are the most recent 20 years. I've been an independent consultant. I've been an IT director. I've been a small business owner. I've been a Microsoft Regional Exchange expert. I am an ITIL champion, and I've spoken to groups as few as 3. Well, I guess I could say I've spoken to individuals as few as 1, and I've also spoken at stadiums. I've spoken at the Anaheim Convention Center to many thousand people who wanted to listen to me, and the Convention Center in Boston for one of the tech eds. I was a subject matter expert on the floor. I love to talk to folks, and hopefully you'll appreciate or benefit from what I've spoken about, or what I'm about to speak about. The reason the background is important is that I know where the pain points come from. I've been the owner, I've been the director, I've been a SME, I've been an independent consultant. I probably have been where you are right now. Some background certifications, you can see those down there. I'm really proud of my ITIL. And I came in very early on that, and you'll find that a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about for the remainder of the hour come from concepts that are clearly ITIL friendly. They're not necessarily directly out of ITIL because I had my own opinions before ITIL version 2, but I really appreciated joining in that environment. Lean Six Sigma, Green Belt, I believe in process. I have seen it work. Repeatable processes, eliminating waste, and eliminating variability in outcomes. So, number 1, the drum roll please, the number 1 way to improve your service desk. Now, if I had a more interactive forum where I was seeing your faces and and looking to see if anybody was really eager to hear what this was, I would also be asking people to guess what they thought the number one way to improve your service desk would be. And I would probably get people who would talk about software. I'd get people talk about processes or centralization or all these kinds of things, and they're all excellent. But my number one way to improve your service desk is to actually have a service desk. And this sounds very smart, Alec, and it's supposed to, because it's supposed to be memorable. You see, a service desk is not the same thing as a help desk or technical support. We've had help desks since there was that one person or technical support that understood the computers better than anybody else. They may have been an accountant, they may have been in sales, they may have been on the manufacturing floor, and when somebody had a question, they went to that individual. They sought them out for their technical expertise, and that's not what service desk is about. See, service desk is more like a crisis hotline than a repair and maintenance function. I am not saying that help desk and technical support are unimportant. They are critical. We need that knowledge base. But service desk is a lot more. So let's talk about them. So what is help desk? The help desk is typically staffed with technically proficient personnel. We look for that, right? We say, you're qualified, you understand the tools that we're working on, and they are typically tool-focused. And they're typically reactive. And I know people think that's a bad term, but firefighters are also reactive. There is so much that can be done proactively, and that's great and ought to be done. But when there isn't a fire burning at the local mall, then you don't need to be putting it out. When the fire starts burning at the local mall and lives and property are in danger, that's when the firefighters show up. So we employ our help desk for maintenance and repair, break fix kind of things, and we really want our help desk to be technically proficient, right? Really? I mean, I'd like our help desk to be technically proficient. I know many people in help desks that are technically proficient, but I want you to think about it just a little bit. Where do we put our newest trained personnel? People who are doing a career change, people who are entering your IT organization for the very first time. We often put them in a help desk role. We say, I know you don't know anything about what we do as a company, but I want you to sit here and answer questions from the company as if you knew what you were talking about. Help desk and technical support is essential, but it is not a service desk. And one of the worst things that happened out of my ITIL 2 classes when I was delivering it, we were championing the concept of the service desk, and companies came back and said, okay, we're going to implement a service desk. So they simply renamed their help desk a service desk and said, we have a service desk now. But they didn't create a service desk, right? That's not a service desk. So what is a service desk? Well, the key word here is not desk. The key word is service. May I help you? What can I do for you today? We want an experience between the IT departments, the IT capabilities, the IT services that we provide to our consumers of the service that is effective and desirable to work with. A service desk should be staffed with compassionate communicators, people who can articulate the need, understand what people are saying. They may have to deal with a person who truly believes they're going to get fired because they lost the fourth quarter earnings report. They did something, or the computer did something, or I don't know, it's just gone. And the person who's making the phone call, or the person visiting the service desk through chat or text, or email even, is distressed, and they may not be an effective communicator. Who needs to be the effective communicator? The service desk personnel. The service desk personnel need to be outcome focused. If the CIO, or let's not CIO, let's say the CFO needs to present to the CEO the financials for the prior quarter, and they are unable to print the document, and they need to go into the meeting in 10 minutes, and this is becoming increasingly frustrated that the darn printer just doesn't work. Well, a help desk might focus on network issues, client issues, the printer device needing to be fixed. All those things are appropriate. We need to fix those things. Those are problems. But the incident that we're facing is the inability to print. We need to get some creative way to get that document on paper. Can we print to another thing? Can I send somebody over there with a thumb drive to drop the PDF or the Excel spreadsheet onto a thumb drive, get it over to something that will print? We are going to focus not on restoration of technical capacity, but on the user's outcome. What is it that they desire? We are the single point of contact, SPOC. You'll hear this talked about later. And while this is not necessarily the role for the deepest geek, and I use that term geek very affectionately, in the organization, we're going to do our SPOC reference to Live Long and Prosper. It's nice to have some sort of desirable interface here. Now, I've done a lot of work for a lot of different companies, and as I've consulted in the ITIL capacity for several places, and they have a problem. Often they have a break-fix technician that I'm going to call Patrick in this example, who is running around the company trying to get things done, but that person happens to be everybody's favorite break-fix technician. They don't put in tickets. They just wait for Patrick to be coming by their office, or Patrick to become trotting by their cubes, and they say, "Oh, Patrick, I was waiting for you. Hey, could you just take a look at this?" Or, "Hey, it's only going to take a minute. Could you I've got just this little problem." Now, Patrick has a problem getting to his final destination, and by all measurements, typically Patrick's going to look pretty bad because he's doing a lot of uncaptured work. But he's doing more than others because people want to work with him. People wish that every time they worked with the service desk, they worked with Patrick. Well, Patrick should probably be moved in a promotion from help desk to service desk. We already know people like to work with Patrick, and he's got some skills in communications. He knows how to get things done, and so let's make sure that people want to call Patrick, and if somebody has to run out to the floor, it might be somebody else. So number one, create a service desk. And I have spent 3-day courses just on describing what the service desk could be and should be, and how to get from where you are to where the service desk is. I don't want to beat that for the entire course, the entire hour of our lecture. I want you to have that vision, and I'd like you to compare in your mind your service desk, if it has that name, or help desk, or tech support, or whatever you want to call it, to the vision that I just briefly described. If a person were thinking about leaping out of a window because of some sort of crisis, should they call a phone number answered by Nick Burns, company computer guy from the turn of the last century at Saturday Night Live, and that individual say, "You're gonna jump? Just do it. Get out of my way." That is a reputation that many IT professionals carry, and we don't want that in the service desk. We want somebody who can listen to them and get the company functional again. Way number 2 to improve your service desk. Honestly, accurately measure performance. There's a whole IT as a service industry here. ITIL uses it, other organizations, other bodies of knowledge reference IT as a service. We have individual tools that provide this service. We have services that support other services, but what we really need to measure, it's so much easier to measure the tools and the cables and the clock cycles and the hard drive access times and capacity. That's easy to measure. But what's hard to measure is the satisfaction with the service. I'm not going to tell you it's impossible to measure. You just sometimes need to be creative in figuring out how you're going to measure the satisfaction. We want people to use the service desk to get their job done better, not just call the service desk when something is broken. If a person cannot make a pivot table work in Excel, whose job is it to fix that? Well, the service desk does own the inability of a user to use a tool. So training may not feel like it's a help desk's job or a tech support's job, but it is a service desk job. IT as a service. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So that's one of the things I lecture on for long periods of time. It's one of my core values, core statements that I bring up over and over. You cannot get away with telling me that your response time will be better. I need to know response time will be better than what, as measured how. What is it that we're comparing ourselves to? What unit of measure at what time? What are we doing? If you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. It's all fuzzy, kind of the rose-colored glasses kind of thing. If you want to look at how tough it was in the good old bad old days, you try using a rotary dial telephone from wherever you are. They have them. They have these antique replicas that still do the DTMA dialing, but you rotate, 1 tick tick, 8 tick 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 tick, 0 tick 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 tick, 0 tick 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 tick, 0 tick 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 tick. Now I don't know who you're calling at, but you've just reached 1-800 and you're about to climb out of your skull, because what was once very acceptable is no longer acceptable. But if you just remember it the way you thought of it back then, it's not, you won't get it accurately. So measure it, compare it, improve it. And look for alignment. It is so easy for the IT department to become siloed. It doesn't matter what the organization is responsible for. We could be healthcare, we could be manufacturing something, we could be providing entertainment services, we could be a military organization, we could be any number of things. They all have an IT function, and their missions are very different from each other, but the IT department, if they focus on just their internal processes and procedures, they don't need to know whether they're making milkshakes or getting a man to the Mars. They're just keeping the email running, backing up the SQL servers, all internal focus. And often when we are isolated in a silo like that, we are doing things that make IT happy that don't necessarily align with the organization's needs. And we also have the opportunity to make business decisions somewhat arbitrarily that, unknown to the business decision maker, are not aligned with the best practices of IT. So we could be wasting a lot of time, talent, and treasure by driving people to do unnecessary work. So that alignment on the tires there, we want to work towards alignment of our service desk's objectives with the organizations and the organization's objectives with the service desk. If you do the 2011 upgrade of ITIL, they're trying to move away from alignment actually into integration. They point out that aligned, or two lines that are parallel, are in alignment, but they never meet. We want to try to go from an aligned business process into an integrated business process. All right, so look at that. We're already on number 3. Sharpen the tools you have. All right, you have people doing the functions you've got. So how do we sharpen them? If we're going to be in an environment where we have to necessarily react to crisis, we can proactively react. We can look for those patterns of business, those patterns of failures, those patterns of things that could be anticipated. We don't have to wait for the crisis. If you are in a community that still allows fireworks on the 4th of July, then you will probably find that every fire truck is outside of the fire station on the evening of the 4th of July. They don't want to wait for the doors to open. They don't want to wait for it to roll up. They don't want to have to get from fire station 1 across town where there isn't a fire station. They want to place a fire truck halfway there in a shopping center, just waiting for a call. Why? Because we have a reasonable chance that a firework is going to create a fire that we need to respond to, and we can anticipate that need for response. We can increase staffing levels at key points and short staffing levels at other points. That's taking what we already have without purchasing anything new and applying it differently. We want to be accessible. We need to be accessible. One of the great ways to reduce the phone calls to the service desk is to disable the phone. That's not going to help anybody who's trying to reach you, but it will reduce the number of phone calls you have to process a day. It's part of a punchline to a joke that is much funnier if you do the whole build-up, but not necessary for this point. You want people to be able to reach you. So how do they reach you? If the problem they're having is with a voice over IP phone, and the only way they can reach you is through voice over IP, then you've got a problem. If the only way they can reach you is through email and the messaging system is down, you've got a problem. So we want to be accessible. We want to be creative. We want to leverage the latest tools to provide the services that our customer needs. Invest in critical skills training. I am in a training company. I make money when you buy training from us. I'm just putting that right on the table. But what I'm talking about is critical skills training. I think you could take any IT practitioner, any technician, and put them into the core technology classes that we offer, and you will get an improved technologist out of it. You'll get somebody who, even if they thought they knew the technology pretty well, even if they thought they knew it very well, might be able to walk away with 1 or 2 tricks. And the person who didn't know it at all walks away with 1,000 new capabilities. That's all great, but that's technology focused. When I'm talking about a service desk, I'm talking about critical skills training, listening. See, I'm quiet for a little while. See if you're listening. Communicating in written form. A lot of the practices that I have implemented for companies involve things like newsletters, blogs. I've done things where we turned around a hostile relationship between the IT department and the organization by pretending we'd outsourced it. What would you expect? People wanted to outsource the IT department because they didn't like their IT department. They thought it was too expensive for the value that they were getting. They thought they could do better with someone else. And if they worked with someone else, that someone else is a separate business. It's not just an IT department. It has salespeople. It has marketing people. It has people who measure the cost of the services provided against the income generated, and if it costs them too much, they need to find a way to increase the cost or reduce the cost or increase the fees charged. They are running as a business, which too many IT departments internally aren't. We don't know how much we cost. We are sometimes largely indifferent to the satisfaction of our customers because we are a necessary evil or perceived that way, and all those other things. I need you to think about how your IT department can be improved in way number 3 by training the individuals that are responsible for the service desk. Yes, continue to train your help desks and your technical support with New Horizons or some other company if you choose to use them, but I want you to think about those things that we can do to create a positive relationship. One of the banks I did this for, and I'm going to just forgive me for this little story, they thought their IT department was worse than useless. That was part of the document collections I did at the beginning of our project, and from the executive team and from the end users, the consumers at the lower levels in the banking organization, worse than useless came up exactly quoted that way more than once. And that was horrible. But then they found that there were a couple of people, like their Patricks that I referenced before, that they wanted to work with. And I said, that was hopeful, that I don't need to replace everybody. In fact, I don't need to replace anybody probably in this organization. I just need to make it look better. So I created a service desk, and I had them call a different number. as if they were calling an outsourced company, which satisfied their lust for blood, their desire to seek vengeance on this perceived hostile IT department. And when they called, they got nothing but the Patricks, the people that they liked to talk to. It's as if people who already knew them were working for the outsourcer. They just didn't outsource. And then had the team produce a bunch of documents, shortcut documents, best, quick workarounds, things that would make the end user's life better. And we moved from branch to branch of the bank and hosted an IT service desk barbecue. So it cost me one Weber grill. We went out there, we bought the grill, we brought in a bunch of, easy to cook, quickly cooked foods. We were in the parking lot one day at each of the locations. We fed people and gave them the handouts. They were plastic laminated so they didn't get all greasy. And you really cannot hate someone who gave you free barbecue. I'm sorry. That's just nice. They liked their IT people, and they walked away from the barbecue with cheat sheets and shortcuts and all kinds of processes. So this was a different kind of training for IT people. It was not teaching them subnetting. It was not teaching them routing protocols. It was not teaching them how to improve the efficiencies of an Exchange server or a Server 2012. This was how to work with human beings. Deepen your bench, all right? You need to be able to provide this service. It is important to provide this service, and it does cost a little bit of money. Sometimes we can find that money by getting rid of failures that are costing us money, getting rid of other areas and reallocating the funds. But we can deepen the bench, having our front tier be the service desk and the other non-consummate communicators be behind the service desk. And we're going to have them do that single point of ownership. I don't want the person to call your service desk and be handed off to level 2 tech support unless the service desk continues to own it, and after level 2 tech support finishes the process and gets them functioning, service desk is still involved in wrapping up the ticket, wrapping up the call, making sure that things are functional, following up with another follow-up call at a reasonable time to make sure that it didn't revert to its old services. This is service. Number 4 way to improve your service desk. Add new tools to the kit. Now, that sounds like, oh, here it is. Bill's going to tell me all about buying new software or buying new hardware. Well, before you buy new hardware or buy new software, that kind of a tool, I hope you don't take offense to this phrase, but it's also one of my go-to phrases, and that is, a fool with a tool is still a fool. I cannot fix your problem by giving you a tool. I can help you understand that you have a problem. We can learn how to address the problem, and then once we have an understanding how the problem can be fixed, we can either buy a tool to make it more efficient to fix it, or not buy the tool and just be labor intensive in fixing it. But the tool typically is about creating efficiency and increased effectiveness, but it doesn't, almost never fixes the problem. So what do I look for tools in my kit? I'm looking for standardization. I want repeatable processes. I want to know what you go through when this kind of a problem happens, because an awful lot of times it's organic, and each time it happens we have to make it up, and it's also it's dependent upon the individual involved. We say if we get Patrick, it'll be done in 10 minutes, but if we get Evil Bob's going to take a half hour and it probably won't work. Or if we say Evil Ted answers the phone, it's going to be done in less than 30 seconds because he's being measured based on how fast he can close the ticket, and Evil Ted's just going to send you an email with what he thinks was the fix to the problem. That didn't fix it, but you're so tired of working with Ted, you never call him back. And so as far as the metrics back on number 2 is concerned, it looks like Evil Ted is doing great. He handled this many tickets during the day, and they were all first-time resolution. Why? Because nobody really wants to deal with Ted. So if we standardize our processes, then we can lead towards automation. And when we lead towards automation, there's an awful lot of tools that we can acquire or code that we can write, so building our own tools that can increase the efficiency. But automating a process that we don't know how it works to begin with, automating a non-standardized process is another fool's errand. Virtualization, distributed versus centralization. Look at how we're going to provide our services. One of the challenges at an organization I consulted for was that they had a great, very efficient follow-the-sun kind of a help desk model, where if you called after a particular time, the phone was picked up in this country. If you called after another time, it was picked up in this other country. And the practice of getting things done efficiently was actually not very well done. I mean, the customers, the consumers of this level of support found that they didn't like interacting with a particular group at a particular campus that happened to be open during certain hours, and they would leave their problem for 3 or 4 hours to continue to create inefficiencies, ineffectiveness, damage sales or production process, whatever, until the better service desk got online, the better help desk got online. So we want to look for problems like that. Follow the sun is great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You get a 24-hour possibly service desk without having to pay a midnight crew because it's always noon somewhere, right? But you want to make sure you've got some standard responses. And if you look at the little cloud computing icon I added there, how are people going to reach, they can reach you through their pads, their pods, their phones, their laptops, their desktops? Don't know. We want to be available. We want to be able to present a remote presence. That is one of the most powerful efficiencies we've done in the last 20 years. I don't have to drive to each of your companies to deliver this lecture. I can sit where I am, and you can come to me. And you didn't have to drive or fly or however it would take you to get to my location to hear me speak. You connected to the World Wide Web, and you can hear my voice. And you didn't even have to do it today because it's being recorded. People tomorrow can listen to this lecture. If I have to go leave my desk and visit you to fix a problem, I want to note that, and I want to figure out why. Because if I can reach out to you through some other means, a remote presence, to fix the problem, then the travel time from my desk to your desk is removed from the inefficiency. Also, the 300 people between me and you that are going to ask me to do just this one little thing on my way to getting to you will be eliminated. I can get to you a lot quicker. I can improve my responsiveness with a remote presence. Sometimes we can't use remote presence because the problem is the remote presence tool. So we find another way to have a remote presence. Knowledge base. Okay, this, for a lot of people, this is just duh. But when I actually ask people about their knowledge base, oh, we've got a knowledge base, I said, show it to me. Sometimes people are a little embarrassed by it, right? It starts to look like that junk drawer or that filing cabinet where everything is just thrown into it. It's not very usable. It's not very queryable. If I've got more than one human being providing service, then I've got the opportunity for one human being to know something that the other one doesn't. And that created an inefficiency if that second person had to reinvent the wheel. As much as possible, we need to create a knowledge base that is consistent, that everybody knows how to gain access to the same amount of information, whether that's in hardware or software, whether it's printed paper in a filing cabinet, whether it's the little spike on the desk at a receiving dock where you put the amber form and spike it down there and we can flip through, oh yeah, we did have a person come in at this point. Whatever it is, your organization needs to look at your need for a knowledge base and create a process for using the knowledge base before you buy a part, before you buy a database, before you buy a off-the-shelf solution, because the off-the-shelf solution is still that tool. You need to understand where the problem is, how you're going to fix the problem, and then apply the tool to making the problem more efficiently resolved. This is it, folks, number 5. and we're only, what, 35 minutes into the hour. Number 5 way to improve your service desk, reward success. All right. Service desk as single point of contact again. I really want you to think about that. I want if the person at the service desk doesn't know anything about your messaging platform, it's acceptable so long as they're a consummate communicator, and that they know the processes of the business, that they know your needs and they can help you achieve your outcomes. And if they need to speak with somebody in the back office who has all kinds of messaging experience, that's great. Either they speak with them or they facilitate your access to them, but they still own the engagement. It is the help desk or technical support was one of the tools that the service desk leveraged to resolve the problem. They are not the people who own the interruption in service. We want to recognize the face of IT, and I've got another slide after this, but I have beat this analogy into the ground for a couple of decades now. And so I'm going to hold off to the next slide, but recognize that if your IT department is represented by a single point of contact, then there is only one face that needs to be fixed. If people sometimes go to the service desk and sometimes directly to different departments, then your perception, the customer's perception of your IT department, if you want to improve that perception, you have to improve the interpersonal skills of every point of contact. Your life is easier in controlling the face of IT if you use SPOC, service single point of contact, to establish the single face through which everybody accesses IT. And please, let's get rid of this idea that service desk is a stepping stone to a real job. All right, the person is 19 years old, and we don't have something else for them to do, but they're the son or daughter of some executive in the company, and they won't do too much damage if we just put them in the service desk. I mean, I really don't want them in there with their hands inside machines that could break them. I don't really want them touching anything that could corrupt our corporate database, so we're just going to put them on the phone. That's not a very good investment. You've made your very competent IT capability look like a 16-year-old or 17-year-old kid who really doesn't know the company yet. Now, if they do have the skills necessary to be a service desk person, then maybe they should stay there. Maybe they don't need to get a real job and take them away from the people and put them in the server room. So here's my analogy for the face of IT. Let's go say at one point in my life, seemingly 100 years ago, I worked for an OEM, or original equipment manufacturer, that made hardware, computing hardware. And we had business class hardware, we had home users and school hardware, we had our gaming class hardware, we had just stuff that had all this sex appeal to it. And people would continuously do this. They would come up to me as a sales professional, and after an interview process, they would basically give me their entire budget. This is all the money I can afford to spend on this computer. I want it to be the last computer I ever buy. Here's, how many thousands of dollars is it going to cost me to buy this amazing computer? And they buy this workstation, like this crazy, I think that's an Alienware one, in the bottom right-hand corner. Looks good, great. And we get it in a box. That's fantastic. Let's say we build this. This is not useful at all. It has a power cord, let's assume, and it can turn on, it can do things, but what is the user going to interact with? The user isn't directly communicating with this hugely expensive device. What they're communicating with is all the peripherals. And almost everyone that I went through the sales cycle with would assume that, there's some peripherals we're going to need, but after I've spent all my money on the computer, I don't want to spend much on anything else. So they wind up with this kind of a setup. The cheapest keyboard they can get, the one that came with for free or one that was under $5, a mouse, a couple of speakers, a ginormous but heavy and not very good resolution monitor. What are they using for a workstation? A folding table and folding chairs. The reality, if you purchase this, is that you're going to spend approaching 100% of your day directly touching that barely functional keyboard, interacting with that poorly functioning mouse, that little joystick I got over there, listening to audio out of $5 speakers or less, and looking at a blurry monitor while your physical ergonomics are in pain. The chair you're sitting on is terrible. The height of the desk is all wrong for you, but you didn't have any money on that. And then a year from now, when you're no longer happy with that Johnny Whiz-Bang computer in the bottom right-hand corner, that's the thing you're going to replace. You'll buy a new fancy computer, and you'll keep your old keyboard, monitor, and mouse. Why? It's human nature. It works. It just doesn't work well. My recommendation when I was selling was very counterintuitive. If I understood what the person's budget was, I split it in half and used at least half of it on the ergonomic. What desk, what can you afford? What keyboard works best for your fingers? What mouse feels best for you? What joystick and audio? What monitor is going to best suit you? And then with what we have left over, the other half, we're going to buy the best computer we can get. But assume that that computing device is like batteries. It's going to be replaced periodically. And so when the processors upgrade and the memory style architecture changes and we need a new computer, we take the big box out of the corner, put it in a new big box, and plug it into a very functioning interface. That is the face of your gaming computer. So let's make the obvious comparison. People get weirded out by spending thousands upon thousands of dollars on a high-end computer and then spend very little on the interface. Think about the cost of your IT infrastructure. I'm not talking about your service desk. I'm talking about the cabling in the walls, the number of computers you own. I'm talking about the licenses for the servers, the software, the databases that you're running. I'm talking about how much money, how much precious money from the corporate coffers, your business's coffers, that could be used to do something else is wisely invested in as great an IT investment as you can make, and then you have an afterthought that, oh, how are we going to interface with it? Who is the face of IT? And we wind up with folding tables and chairs and that sort of thing. So please, if this is the only thing you remember out of it, well, I'd like you to remember 1 and 5, right? Number 1, have a service desk. And number 5, understand why it's important to have a service desk. It's the face of IT. So, you've heard me talk for, something approaching 43 minutes now, and I don't like to just talk at people without a call to action. So what are your next steps? Evaluate and implement a real service desk. What do you currently have? Is it called a service desk? I'm sorry if it is, because then you're going to have to convince people later down the road that the improvements you make are improvements from the service desk to the service desk. But if you still are using the old monikers, if we're calling it a help desk or a tech support, then you can say, we're now implementing a service desk. And simply out of marketing and name change is amazingly powerful. Evaluate and implement aligned performance metrics. I know when I get bad service from my suppliers and my vendors and whomever it is, I can tell as the customer when that company is measuring the duration of the call, keeping it as short as possible, keeping the interaction between the service desk personnel and the customer as short as possible, because they're not going to invest any money. The money was already made when they sold me the device, and now every time they talk to me, it's costing their profit. So they want to talk to me as little as possible. You're measuring against a set of metrics that is going to destroy the perceived value of the device. I will buy a device that gets better support, and your users will use a IT service desk that provides better support. Invest in training your service desk team. We're going to talk about some of the things in just a few minutes that you could choose to train them in, but understand that I understand that it's hard to think that investing in a position that is temporary, that's transitory, that they're going to no longer need these skills of a consummate communicator if they're going to be promoted into a real job later. But, again, the idea is let's invest in the service desk. Let's create the best face for IT that we can and train them in what they're short in. Train them in language skills. Train them in leadership skills. Train them in what it is that the customer actually does. Don't just give them IT visibility. Some of the best aha moments have happened when the IT person has had to see what the salesperson has to go through every day and realizes what the IT person thought was a powerful new tool that they added to the screen really impedes the salesperson's ability to close the sale. They have to go through 9 more screens to get something done. Understand what your consumer of service is experiencing on a daily basis, and you will be more empathetic. And empathy is one of those great skills for a consummate communicator. Invest in new technologies, methodologies to improve service outcomes. I am a salesperson at my heart, and I would be very upset if somebody like me was telling my customers, don't buy hardware and software from the Burger Man until you understand how the hardware and software will improve your service outcomes, because you might discover that while upgrading from version 9 to version 10 of something is really technologically Johnny whiz-bang great, if there is no service outcome, why did we do it, right? One of the things that I think of a lot, and this is my other background, is messaging. We would keep the same version of the client, the messaging client, on the desktop, and then spend a huge amount of time and money and risk in upgrading the infrastructure servers so that the messaging product could run better. User never sees it. In fact, sometimes what the user sees is the things that they used to like went away. So as far as the user's experience, we've degraded their experience by investing a bunch of money in new hardware. Now, if it was necessary to invest that, then we need to find a way that that necessary investment improves service outcomes. And sometimes that's just marketing, advertising, blogs, flyers that show that this new feature exists and isn't this better for the sales department? And look how this improves the functionality of accounting. And professionalize the service desk, all right? Find the people who like their job. Find the people that people want to talk to and give them a reason to stay. We burn and churn through that profession. The same, I'm going to, hopefully nobody takes offense at this, but I don't necessarily go back to any automobile dealership that I have worked with in the past because of the level of service they gave me, because I know the level of service that they gave me is dependent upon the salesperson who met me on the lot. And I hold my cars several years, and the likelihood that the same salesperson who sold me my last car would be available to sell me this car is approaching zero, at least in my community. They burn through salespeople rapidly. And so if my relationship with the dealership is the salesperson and the salesperson leaves, the dealership has no relationship with me. And so every time I buy a car, I reevaluate all my options. There's no loyalty there. So we want to create some stability in that interface. We want to create some stability in the IT profession as well. Don't let the underpaid person sit at that desk while they're in summer school. Create a profession that a person will want to be. Okay. Training resources, business and management skills. All levels of Microsoft Office are something that you might want to look at, unless you're using some other form of Office suite. I'm using Microsoft Office here because it is ubiquitous across all countries and all the companies. But if your organization is using a different suite of Office tools, become trained in that. Know how to use pivot tables, that sort of thing. Know how to autofill or to create mail merge. If you're going to create a service desk, we need to help people to learn how to do their jobs better. Fundamentals of customer service. Learn what it means to be in a customer service role. These are, by the way, to be self-serving. All classes available through New Horizons, but they're available elsewhere as well. ITIL Foundations, a 3-day class, gets you a certificate at the end if you take the test at the end. It is low-hanging fruit. It is a course designed to give an individual the vocabulary to talk about ITIL, but you'll ruin a person's life if you only have one IT person in the entire organization go through an ITIL class, because they'll get frustrated that nothing else is working like they think it can work. Let's send 2, 3 people, maybe one person first, then some other people, so you can start the conversation and start creating an ITIL-focused culture. Then there's the intermediate and advanced for those people who are going to take it and run with it and change their world. Lean Six Sigma. Lean, the vocabulary, the currency of lean is time. We want to look at, is this the best use of my customer's time to wait in line for me to answer their question? Is there some form of self-service portal that, while maybe not as servicing as I am, they can get some easily fixed things done in a shorter amount of time? So long as they're satisfied with the self-service portal, then it's not a degradation of service. Six Sigma is about standardized results. One of the weird things about Six Sigma is consistently bad results is better than inconsistently good ones, because we have to figure out where the inconsistency comes from. We want them to be consistent and then improving. So we look at how we do things better, the psychology, the technology, the mathematics of improving processes. Managerial leadership. Let people know how to lead. Help them know how to lead. Most people only know how to be led. Somebody was in charge of them, and if they get a leadership role, they try to guess what the person who was leading them was thinking at the time that they got their instructions. Really, managerial leadership is a very valuable soft skill. And how to motivate your employees, how to get people to want to do what you want them to do. Some other training resources. The CompTIA organization was attempting to, and has, I think, largely succeeded in creating a vendor-neutral approach to certifying people in multiple areas. So CompTIA, electronics and electricity and computing hardware, that's a A+. Network Plus, the concepts of networking and all that, and Security Plus. Now, the soft skills are probably more important than these skills for your service desk. But a service desk generalist that knows about networking doesn't necessarily need to know how a particular Cisco router works. That could be a specialist in the help desk or service or support team, technical support. But having a greater awareness of networking can't hurt in the process of resolving customers' problems. And security, we're all about security now. And Security Plus is a relatively entry-level way to get into 5 days worth of training about knowing about security and IT. Microsoft, we have 2 tiers. My organization tends to train an awful lot of MCSA and MCSE level classes, and those are just fine. I don't want you to stop taking those classes from us for any reason, but those are technologist focused. Those are installing and configuring. Those are, powerful tools for people who are going to interface with the technology. Microsoft also has these MTA classes, and we offer some of them. They were designed for public schools and community colleges, and they are more of a generalist class. And so Windows Server Administration Fundamentals, not specifically to a particular version of server, but why do we create user accounts? Why do we create computer accounts? What is the relationship between this sort of stuff? Networking fundamentals. Both of these compete fairly well with the CompTIA objectives, but realize that there are multiple tiers of products out there. We've got our Windows 10 solutions, and we've got our Office 365 solutions. There is an existing class, 20346, that is available right now, but it is probably not appropriate for anybody in a service desk. It is very deep technology, deals with all the challenges of security boundaries between the cloud and between businesses that partner with each other, federated trust relationships, seriously IT geeky, nerdy kind of stuff. And it's really the only one we've had for a while. But coming real soon, I believe it'll be May of 2016, we will have the 20347, Enabling and Managing Office 365 class. And that's going to get our service desk people and our frontier people more and more familiar with the cloud-based tools and how to troubleshoot them, fix them, and it's focused on the business outcome that the tool can do, less on the technology behind the tool. And there's a ton of stuff here. We've got, I've talked about Microsoft, I've talked about CompTIA, I've mentioned Six Sigma and ITIL, but there's just a world of training that you can invest in. And if you create your environment so that your IT department is not constantly being perceived as hostile, it's not constantly under stress of aggravation of between the us and them mentalities, you can create an environment where people want to be, and these investments in knowledge really pay great dividends. So I'm a big fan of that as well. And now we are at 56 minutes after the hour, and I'm at my question slide.
Okay, yeah.
Did we accumulate anything?
Nothing yet. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to pop those in the questions or the chat box, and Bill can go ahead and give you an answer. We got about 4 minutes for any questions that might come in. While we wait for that, I would like to just go ahead and say thank you, Bill, so much for taking time in your day to present this for us. It's been a great presentation. I know that I myself have been sitting here taking some notes in regards to the different courses and things like that from my knowledge base. So somebody just said, I'm good, excellent info. Thank you very much. Thanks, David, for saying that. And give another second here. And if nothing does come in right now, but if you are on here still and you have a question that comes up in the future or in the next couple of days as you're thinking about this webinar, or maybe so everybody knows, we will be sending out a copy of the recording, or a link to the recording to everyone. If you go back to watching and come with a question, please feel free to email those to me. My email is just replying to the invite, and I will get it, and I can work with Bill to get those answered. And Bill, here's a question: What kinds of cert training or certification do you recommend for Tier 2 techs and also Tier 3 techs?
Okay, it depends upon the technology that you're training on. But one of the things I would encourage you to look for with our, if you're looking at Microsoft, which is one of my core partners or core competencies, Microsoft on their descriptions, not everybody's descriptions, but I know on their descriptions of a course, they put a technology number on it. The 100 levels are the MTA classes that are referenced for your service desk kind of personnel. The Tier 2 would be a 200 level class. These have to do with Microsoft's rebranding back to the old brand of MCSA, Systems Administrators. And Systems Administrators are largely required to keep things that were designed by others functioning. And so they need to know how to do some installations and configurations and restore functionality, but they're not the deep problem solvers or the architects of new change. Microsoft has the 300 level classes, which are courses for engineers. That's what they used to call it. I think it's expert now, but at the MCSE level. And the 300 level classes have a lot to do with design and a much deeper dive. Microsoft does, contrary to many people's opinion, have some 400 level classes. A lot of those are delivered directly out of Microsoft to Microsoft employees at the various Microsoft campuses, but they do make it into the general population every so often. So if there is a really deep dive class, take a look at your training partner and ask them, if there's a really deep dive class available for that particular technology. Now, I've been focusing on Microsoft. If you want to look at business process improvement, Your intermediate ITIL classes are where you would want to go, and there's a brand new ITIL class that we just can't wait to unwrap and present to you. Other people have already talked about it, but it's the ITIL practitioner class, and that one is a great course for how to actually do things. While ITIL Foundations is about the concept, practitioner is, okay, I've got the concept, now what do I do? Did that help?
Yeah, he said yes, that helped greatly. So, well, we are right at our time of an hour now, and I know Bill's got things to go on too, and we only have an hour blocked out for this, and there's no other questions coming in. Like I said, if anybody else does have additional ones, please feel free to respond to the invite or to the email that's going to be sent out later today, and I will get those responses, and I can get all those to Bill to answer for you. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time to attend today. It was great having so many people on here, and thank you again, Bill, for presenting for us. Like I said, I know I took away a lot of good information.
Thank you all.